Today I fucked up by eating a cupcake in the freezer while my husband was at the gym. Update. Drank water last night and actually got to bed at a good time. Good thing times moves fucking slow when tripping. Woke up actually feeling fucking great today. Time to go see my dying patients on hospice. Edit. Also, I said Delta 8 as a lie since it's legal here. Sorry for the confusion as I was not in the most clear state of mind yesterday. And the mention of LSD was since that's usually my preferred psychedelic and not shrooms. Hopefully I can get through this message. It's difficult to focus right now lol. I just got home from Thanksgiving in Texas with my parents and my husband couldn't go with me this year. He stayed in town and saw our friend while I was gone. Unknown to me, he bought some homemade cupcakes with psychedelic mushrooms from him. Early this morning he picked me up from the airport and when we got home he decided to run to the gym. While he was at the gym I decided to go to the freezer to get ice cream. There were several items blocking the way so my lazy ass decided to not move them to the side to grab it. As I was closing the door, I saw some cupcakes and thought they were leftover from husband's Thanksgiving since I couldn't be there. So I ate one and started doing some chores. We decided to go to the in-laws when he got back to watch the football game. When we got there I started to feel off and feel panicky. I already deal with anxiety so I was worried I was having a panic attack which hasn't happened in a while. I decided to lay down at first since I felt lightheaded. As I was laying there, I felt the panic keep rising and wouldn't stop. I decided to go to the bathroom and blow my nose since I was basically full on crying on their couch. I didn't know why I was feeling this way, and it even crossed my mind that it felt like I was coming up on LSD. I just thought my anxiety was higher coming off of vacation and going into the work week. It took me a second, but I looked at the floor and the patterns on it started moving weirdly. I immediately thought back to what I ate today, and then it hit me. I went back to the living room and asked him to talk with me for a second. Mind you, his parents are right there too and saw me on the verge of a breakdown when I left to the restroom. We went up to his mom's office and I asked him if there was anything in cupcake I stole from the freezer. After our conversation, we went back downstairs and his mom asked if I was okay. It was clear I had been crying and was not with it. So told her, I accidentally ate a Delta 8 brownie from my husband's friend. Weed is illegal here too. And I just tried to laugh it off while giving lots of side-eye to my husband. And it's just the start of our night. Send help OMFG. Too long did not read. I'm unintentionally tripping balls on mushrooms at my in-laws in the middle of a football game. Buy the ticket, take the ride. And if it occasionally gets a little heavier than what you had in mind, well, maybe chalk it up to forced consciousness expansion. These stories about grown adults accidentally eating treats with drugs in them are insane to me because I would never bring home any normal-looking food with a psychotropic substance in it without first warning my wife. This is just to say, I have eaten the cupcake that was in the icebox. And which you were probably saving to get high. Forgive me, it was surprising to trip balls and cry. Also, should I add that I've been up since 4 fucking a.m. to catch a flight and report to work tomorrow morning at 8:30. Should I call in sick? Lol. Today I fucked up by talking to my sleeping partner. I came home to find my partner asleep, so I carefully crawled into bed with them. I happened to have a lot on my mind, so after some time I started speaking quietly to them. I've never done this before, but it was cathartic to say my thoughts out loud. Since they were asleep, I told them things I would never say to them if they were conscious. I am diagnosed with major depressive disorder as well as generalized anxiety disorder. Lately, I've been in a severely bad mental state, so bad that I cannot get out of bed, take care of hygiene, go to work. You get the picture. I think about ending it every day. I am in conversation with my school administrators, work supervisor and HR, family and friends support system for accommodations during this time, and also have been meeting with all kinds of medical professionals in an effort to find something that helps lessen my mental anguish. I've seen many therapists, counselors, have been on multiple medications, do my best to maintain social relationships and exercise. Nothing has helped, and being honest about how I am doing when I was able to mask it and function for many years before is taking a toll on me. In talking to my sleeping partner, I told him about how much I hate how little control I have, how exhausted I am with the process of finding something that works. I expressed regret for how my condition is difficult for other people as well. And then, I started talking about the future. A future I do not see myself in. I talked about my options and plans to take my life. even made a joke about what his highly religious mother would say. Near the end, I rambled on about how amazing my time with him has been, how much I love him, how much I fear leaving him to deal with grief. I made a comment about how I sincerely hope he finds someone who deserves the treatment he gave me, someone he is excited to spend the rest of his life with, after I am gone. Folks, as I'm sure you've guessed, he wasn't asleep for all of that. As far as I know, he only heard the very last bit, but that was enough to freak him out. As soon as I said my last, "I love you," and began to settle to sleep, he spoke. He asked what I meant, when I'm gone. He asked if I was serious. In that moment, I didn't want to be honest, but I couldn't lie, so I just didn't answer. I'm sure that was answer enough. I feel so guilty. He really has been the most wonderful person to share the last many years of my life with, and my heart breaks for what I'm going to do to him. I wish I didn't have to further burden him with the knowledge of what's coming. Not looking for advice, declarations of support, or sympathy. Just wanted to type into the void for a bit. Take care, friends. I'll see you on the other side. TL.Dr. My partner was not sleeping as I told him about my intention to kill myself, and I feel guilty for not only wanting to leave this world, but for making him have to think about it prematurely. A burden shared is a burden halved. I'm sure you felt better after emptying your bag. Please reconsider. Living is hard, but there's hope of a better tomorrow. That's reason enough sometimes. When I wanna die, I just think of my son who would be without a dad. I think of my ex-wife who would rejoice. I get angry and the fire keeps me going. Bring it on. You are valuable. Your partner showed you such. Keep going. This wasn't a foo. You may well have saved your own life by talking while he was awake. I hope you're able to talk more to your partner. He sounds like a great guy who doesn't recognize just how much pain you're in. Today I fucked up by introducing my best friend to my girlfriend. This happened a few months back, but I wasn't really ready to talk right about it up until now. A few years back I met this girl, Jay, online. She was really nice and we started talking up to a point where we would do late-night calls to tell each other about our days. She would go on about how she didn't feel safe with her boyfriend back then or about problems with her father, while I finally had someone to tell about my day. We would give each other advice or just be there to listen. It started off as a great friendship and someday it just got more than that. We started meeting up as often as we could. We lived 250 kilometers apart, and eventually got together after she dumped her allegedly abusive boyfriend for me. I never felt bad for him up until now. She told me all about how he hit her and I actually thought he didn't deserve better than to be left. Anyways, after we got together COVID struck, which in our case was pretty much the best thing that could have happened. My school allowed all students to work from home to reduce the risk of infection. I spent the majority of the following months at her place. We got to spend a ton of time together. I cooked for us, helped her care for her horse and even cleaned the place sometimes. Some people told me to stop doing so much for her, but I guess one could argue I was kinda blinded by love. It went on like that for 1.5 years. We started to argue a lot. She was getting really jealous about everything I did and every girl I talked to, while she kept meeting with her male friends. I was never the one to tell her what to do as I fully trusted her, but it kind of hurt that she couldn't give that trust back the same way. Right around that time, in the fall of 2021, her company sent all the apprentices to vocational school for around 4 weeks. I took the train back home as she wouldn't be home Mondays to Fridays anyways, and I had to get some work done with my classmates for our final paper. I tried to keep in touch as well as possible with texts and calls, but Jay seemed to grow more distant each and every day. At first, she stopped replying to my texts right away. Then she stopped taking my calls and we only got to talk to each other for a few minutes every other day. What made that situation even worse is that our conversations got pretty one-sided. She only talked about herself and her time at that school anymore. How she had met this great new girl, who to be honest with everything she told me about her was pretty much a complete slut, with whom she really got along with. She talked about how they would spend the night in the boys' rooms and how her friends would get drunk together. She assured me that she'd stay faithful and wouldn't drink. We got into so many fights that I finally lost count. We decided to take a break then and there. It only took a few weeks for both of us to actually realize how we missed one another. We got talking again and she apologized many times and so did I. As we couldn't see each other again until after Christmas, we decided to spend the time like in the days we met and played a lot online together. At the same time, I also wrote my final paper with 2 of my closest friends, Let's call them P and M. It was shortly before Christmas when I first introduced P to my girlfriend J. We all shared the same passion for the same games and it was fun in our little group of 3. Christmas came around and I drove down to J to finally meet up with her and make up for good in person. We had a great time for a few days and when I had to drive home for New Year's, she asked if she could come with to spend more time with me and to meet my best friend in person as she was apparently curious about the person who she was talking with for the last weeks. I agreed and we got into my car. A few hours later we arrived at my house and spent a nice evening together, taking a late-night drive and watching people start firecrackers at midnight. The next day we met up with my best friend to watch a movie. That is where everything went south. What I didn't realize was that she was holding hands with him the whole movie long. When we finally got home that night, she sat down on the bed and told me that she was apparently very sorry but she had held hands with him the whole movie long. She told me she didn't want it. That he just grabbed her hand and wouldn't let go and that as he was my best friend she wouldn't want to piss him off. She told me that it was just holding hands and I wouldn't have anything to worry about. That day my world shattered. I just didn't know it yet. I didn't want to believe it myself and she was really good at manipulating people so I just believed her when she bombarded me with so many apologies and nearly started to cry. In hindsight. At least she acted that way. I sat down next to her, comforted her and told her that it was all right and I wasn't mad at her. Which I actually wasn't. I wasn't mad. I was devastated. We already planned a billiard night the next day and I didn't want to cancel on short notice because of that and it happened again. Same thing. I got home and she broke down telling me he grabbed her hand again. I was actually pretty stupid to not do anything about it to be honest. I was never one for confrontation and was always a shy person back then. We met again the day after because we had already bought tickets for the spa. I made some slight hints at my best friend that he should keep his distance because she was my girlfriend and I actually thought we worked it out and it was just a misunderstanding on his part that he didn't know we were back together after our break. We got to talk about some popular sites near Jay's place and how it would be totally worth it for him to visit them someday. He mistook that as an invitation and told us he'd be happy to accompany us on our drive back to her place if we would take him on a tour and show him around the beautiful landscape. As he was my best friend and I didn't want to hurt him and I thought he would finally keep his distance from Jay, I couldn't bring it over me to tell him he couldn't come. So the next day we drove back to her place in the middle of the night. Just us 3. We arrived around midnight. I was pretty exhausted that night because of the 4-hour drive. I was the driver the whole time and we didn't take a break. Anyways, when we arrived Jay told me she was too tired to search for bedsheets and as her dad wouldn't allow someone to sleep on their couch, we should just sleep in one bed. The 3 of us. Honestly, I couldn't have argued with her even if I wanted to as I fell asleep right there when I lay down on the bed. The not safe for work part starts here. I can tell you that no matter what you fear could happen in the darkness, what monsters could attack you, nothing comes close to the horror you feel when you wake up at 3 a.m. to your girlfriend moaning. I turned around and saw her cuddled close to his chest, rubbing herself on him in her sleep. I thought I was dreaming. I was imagining things. I got sick and ran to the bathroom and had to vomit while having my first ever mental breakdown. I never knew you could cry without feeling anything, but starting from that day I noticed that you can and that it's way worse than when you actually feel the sadness. I was shaken and couldn't get the picture out of my head. I ran to my car, cranked the music to maximum volume and just sat there crying, punching my wheel. For about 2 hours straight until my best friend knocked at my window asking if everything was alright. I did what everyone in that situation would do and kindly told him to fuck the hell off. When I calmed down I went back in and confronted Jay. She broke down in tears and told me she was not responsible for what she did in her sleep and that she probably subconsciously thought that it was me and not him. We argued and argued until the morning when we went to the stables to care for her horse. We decided to still take my best friend for the trip to one of the tourist attractions. As this was the first ever day I was feeling that low, I didn't really know how to handle it and just stepped on the gas on the way there. We were doing 150 km per hour on country roads and close to 100 km per hour in local towns we passed through. All the time I hoped we would crash and all die. For some inexplicable reason, we actually survived the trip even though I did come close to slipping off the road on more than one occasion. I can still remember them both. The fear in their eyes and how they wouldn't dare to say a thing. How they'd cling to the seats and the door. Before me and my former best friend, P, drove home that night, I got into an argument with Jay again and set her an ultimatum. To break off contact with P and never talk to him again. That was the first time I did something like this. After a lot of discussions, she finally told me she'd break off contact with him because I was way more important to her than he was. She asked to talk to him one last time in private to tell him that. Well, as I later got to know, she told him the exact same thing as soon as I left the room. That she would break off contact with me because P was more important to her, even though she only knew him for about a week at that time. Jumping forward in time, I and P both agreed to break off contact with her because she tried to play us that badly. She apparently also assured him the whole time that we weren't a couple anymore and that I would be totally okay with everything that happened between them. Furthermore, she was also the one who did the first step on the whole holding hands thing and the cuddling at night. I admitted myself to the psych ward because I felt like I couldn't go on like this anymore and because I was devastated. By the time I got out and back to school, I realized that P was still chatting with J and that they were meeting in secret behind my back. I broke down completely. I started cutting and tried to kill myself more than 5 times in the following 3 months. I got admitted into psych 6 more times, one of them being because of a sleep medication overdose and several times because of suicide threats in front of teachers, family, cops and 112 operators. The last time I got admitted was because I tried to jump off a building. An EMT managed to grab me and save my life that day. My best friend stood by and watched. The worse I got, the more he kept his distance until he finally broke off contact completely. Don't trust the people you think you trust the most because they'll hurt you the most. I am 20M, currently in therapy and starting to do better. Step by step. My former best friend P started dating J back then and they're still happily together and both broke off contact with me. And #X200B. Too long did not read. Today I fucked up by introducing my best friend to my girlfriend only to find them cheating on me a week later. They then broke off contact with me completely and are now happily together. Damn son, stay in therapy for the time being. Also, eventually you're going to look back on the whole thing and realize she played you from day one. You got used, hard. That shit is wrong. Entirely possible your best friend is a few months or a year or 2 behind you taking the same ride. Honestly, she sounds like a man-eater. Be glad you got out when you did and hope your friend gets clear of her someday too. WTF did I just read? I'm sorry you went through that op. I hope you are well surrounded, with a great therapist in your family. I hope you learn to stand your ground and set strong boundaries. You don't need J and P in your life. It's highly probable that she fucks him over too at some point. If he comes crawling back to you, don't answer. What you went through is enough of a cautionary tale.